By now, throughout the world, the term shroud refers to a linen cloth 4 meters 42 centimeters in length, 1 meter 13 centimeters in width, that has been kept in Turin since 1578. On this light yellow ochre sheet, there are visible imprints that reproduce the frontal image, left, and dorsal image, right, of a human body. There also appear numerous other marks left by the vicissitudes suffered by the shroud during its life. The frontal image shows the face crowned by long hair and a thick beard, the thorax, the arms crossed over the pubic area, and the legs stretched out. The posterior image shows the nape of the neck, the back, the outstretched legs, and the soles of the feet. In particular, one notes 2 black lines running parallel to the longer side, burn marks caused by a fire that broke out in 1532 in the Sainte-Chapelle at Chambéry, then housing the shroud folded in a silver box. The 2 black singed lines are due to contact with the overheated sides of the box. During the fire, a drop of molten metal fell onto the sheet, passing through every layer, destroying the fabric. This explains the symmetrical repetition of numerous triangular holes along the 2 black lines. In 1534, these holes were repaired by the Clare nuns of Chambéry, who covered them with patches. In addition to reinforce the area of the sheet damaged by the fire, the sisters sewed both the shroud and the patches to a sheet of linen called Holland cloth. For conservation reasons, these patches were removed in 2002 and the Holland cloth substituted by a new backing fabric, recognizable under the burns because of its different color and weft with respect to the shroud. In the central area of the sheet, there are a series of large rhomboidal marks with jagged edges. These were caused by the water that soaked the shroud at some time in its history. There are also 4 symmetrical groups of roundish burn marks, smaller than the former, which, without doubt, date from before the Chambéry fire. In this case, too, the new backing cloth appears beneath the holes, recognizable by its different color and weft. Along the upper edge, an 8 centimeter wide strip of the same material as the shroud has been sewn on. Its extreme edges have 2 large gaps, under which the new fabric can be seen. Along the lower edge of the left-hand gap, there is the area from which the two most recent material samples were taken for scientific purposes in 1973 and 1988. The shroud fabric consists of a valuable linen that appears to be hand-woven with a characteristic typical of herringbone cloth. The longitudinal strips, about 1 centimeter wide, are highly visible when the cloth is illuminated with close-up light. Upon enlargement, the herringbone weave is clearly visible. The face of the man of the shroud bears numerous bruised lesions that coroners have carefully studied. Swellings have been identified that appear coherent with hematoma. These are particularly visible on the right side of the face, that is more swollen than the left. Furthermore, there are marks attributable to lacerated and contused wounds. The nasal septum is bent, caused by a fracture. All things considered, the man of the shroud appears to have been savagely beaten during the hours preceding his death. On the forehead, nape of the neck, and in the hair, one can observe numerous sinuous rivulets of blood originating from wounds caused by pointed objects with a small diameter. They radiate out from the head and appear to have been caused by a crown of sharp thorns placed on the head itself. The characteristics of the blood traces leaving the wounds allow the distinction between lesions involving arterial and venal vessels. Of particular interest is the blood stain in the center of the forehead, coming from a wound to a frontal vein that has the form of an upturned 3, because it follows the lines of the forehead itself. On the right-hand side of the chest, there is a large blood stain originating from an oval wound caused by a pointed cutting object that struck between the 5th and 6th rib and penetrated deeply. The characteristics of this wound are important in that they show that it was inflicted after the death of the subject. The blood that spurted out of the wound is surrounded by a serous halo that is typical of blood flowing out of a corpse, in which the serum and corpuscles have already separated. The frontal image of the shroud shows clear signs of the imprints left by the arms. These are stretched out with the hands crossed in the pubic region. On both forearms, there are long blood stains beginning at the wrist and flowing up to the elbow. Their direction appears unnatural, as they seem to be flowing upwards. One must bear in mind that we are dealing with bloodstains formed when the body was hanging on the cross and the wrists were higher than the elbows. The left wrist shows clear signs of a characteristic bloodstain formed by two diverging trails of blood related to the two different positions assumed by the condemned on the cross, the prostrate and the erect. The blood